welcome to the firm. Between SEBI and the tax department, there is so much ground to cover this week. That's why we have two shows on air this weekend. On this show, we're focusing on two very important announcements made by SEBI. SEBI has taken a hard new stance against qualified audit reports. Substantial or material qualifications may lead to a mandatory restatement of accounts and could even be accompanied by penalties and punishment. Now, I did some digging around, and here's how I'm told this new scrutiny process will work. All audit qualifications will have to be mentioned in a form that will accompany annual audit reports filed by listed entities with the exchanges. The exchanges, based on a prima facie scrutiny, will report significant qualifications to SEBI's QARC, or Qualified Audit Report Review Committee. The QARC will then refer significant qualifications to ICAI's Financial Reporting Review Board, that's the FRRB, for an opinion on whether the qualifications are justified or not. This opinion will then be considered by SEBI's Corporation Finance Department. Now, if the FRRB says the qualifications are justified, i.e. the auditor is right and the company is wrong, then SEBI may mandate the company to restate accounts. And depending on the severity of the situation, SEBI may even consider penalties and punishment. It's a brave new step to protect investors from the increasing number of qualified accounts. And to talk about it, I am joined by well-known independent director Naushir Mirza, who's also a former auditor. Joining me in Mumbai also is Jameel Khatri of KPMG, and joining me all the way from Chennai, former ICAI President Amarjeet Chopra. Gentlemen, to all three of you, a very warm welcome. I'm going to start first with you, Mr. Mirza, because you sit on the boards of several companies, head audit committees. You have to deal with auditors and qualifications, and I don't mean deal with in a negative sense.
No.
It's a brave new step that SEBI is taking. And you can't complain about the step itself. But what will the implications of this be? How will it work? What is your assessment?
Manika, two immediate responses to that. First, I think it's an excellent step, and I'm all for it, because for 60 years I've never seen any regulator, whether it's the registrar of companies or SEBI or the stock exchanges or whoever else, do anything about qualified audit opinions. It's almost become a joke. So that's my first response. The second one, from the process you just described, my only concern is that the process seems to be so bureaucratic and protracted that by the time SEBI finally reaches a conclusion to direct a restatement, several quarters or annual closings may have passed, and companies would have continued to issue financial statements that perhaps repeat the same deficiency, which is right now at that point of time under scrutiny.
Right.
And how can we shortcut this whole process to stop these 4 or 5 stages for SEBI to reach a conclusion? I think the FRRB is doing the main job, and finally SEBI has to take action.
So you're suggesting something like the exchanges refer the qualifications directly to the FRRB?
I think so. The QARC can be cut out. And the other thing is, do companies, because there must be due process, companies should be able to represent their point of view. Because the auditors may have a point of view, that doesn't mean the companies are wrong.
But I would imagine that representation is probably made at the FRRB level?
I don't know.
Okay, that's not been laid out as yet. So
maybe
those are very
Mr.
fair
Chopra
points.
would be able to
yeah.
tell us.
Okay, before I get to that, Jameel, your quick first thoughts on what this will mean for companies and for investors.
I think I echo what Naushir said. I think this is a very positive kind of step. One of the things as an auditor, as an accountant, I always used to feel is that all the effort that you put into the audit, is that really reflected in the final results which go out to the investors? And I'll give you an example. There are many cases where there are 5, 6 qualifications, but when you when you look at the media, when you look at really what's reported by the company and how investors look at the financial statement, they still look at the EPS as one number without looking at the numerous qualifications behind that.
Yeah.
So I think if we have a mechanism whereby the numbers which are reported are after adjusting for the qualifications, which is what happens, let's say, in an IPO situation already, because SEBI requires that to be restated for qualifications and other matters, I think it cuts the chase and presents the right numbers. I just want to add one more thing, that this shies away from the final step, which in my mind would have been a very, very kind of ultimate step in terms of making this work, which is a qualified audit opinion not being accepted by the exchanges at all. And as you know, Menika, this is what happens in many advanced markets, including the US,
right,
where a qualified audit report is not accepted in filings by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So I think we made a big leap. We've done something in the right direction. We stopped shy of kind of the ultimate objective in my mind. And then I again echo what Naushir said, that the effectiveness of this process is going to depend upon whether this becomes a 6 months to a 1 year affair, or whether we do it in a timely basis such that the relevance of this process is maintained as far as the investors are concerned.
I'm going to get to the no qualifications aspect in just a bit, but before that, Mr. Chopra, everybody on this panel, and I'm including you in that, applauds this move by SEBI, but the concerns are on the process front. What do you make of the role of the FRRB in this, is the point I want to bring you in on, because the FRRB is going to have to make the opinion on whether a qualification is justified or not, and hence whether a restatement is required or not. Is the FRRB equipped today to do this?
So far as the equipping of FRRB is concerned, let me say very clearly that FRRB is fully equipped. But let me take you to another angle, very frankly, and that's what I want you, the two other panelists, to really look at it. When in 2002, the FRRB was brought into existence, the purpose was not to look at the qualified reports, to be very honest. The purpose was that if at all some of the financial statements do not comply with the accounting standards, do not comply with the regulatory requirements, then what kind of audit reports have been issued in respect thereof? And suppose the auditor has defaulted in something, then probably the case could be referred to a disciplinary committee. You see, because we don't have powers to go against the company.
Are you implying that the scope of the FRRB will have to be widened, and the FRRB will have to come back with opinions fairly quickly for the time process to not, sort of run into several months?
To some extent, I fully agree with you. The FRRB's terms of reference will have to undergo a change, and probably the process will have to be improved upon, that we can really come back to SEBI immediately after the SEBI refers the cases to us.
We'll have to relook at the composition of the FRRB. We'll have to relook at the staffing. For example, today the FRRB relies a lot on volunteers, people who volunteer to play this role for the review role, etc. If this is going to be such an important function going forward, then the regulators will have to look at the FRRB, look at the staffing, both at the overall board level, as well as in terms of people who participate in these reviews of this qualification, to see whether that's sufficient or not.
I also had a question, and maybe Mr. Chopra couldn't hear it that time, is when will the company have an opportunity to represent its view? Would it be in the FRRB, or would it be at SEBI's level, or where would it? Do you have any idea on that?
Mr. Chopra?
Very frankly, Naushir, I have gone through this and I don't find an answer to that. Very frankly, in FRRB, we have been writing to the companies. Companies have been rather saying that we are not answerable to you, because we can only proceed against our own fraternity. Now, once the SEBI is stepping into this entire scene, I think, as I can read it, it does not say that an opportunity will be given. It only says if the clarification is given, and that's one of the issues that I am posing before you as an independent director. Should it mean that whatever directors have actually responded to in their director's report to the auditor's qualification should be considered to be their clarification? Or should it be that a fresh opportunity has to be given to the management to say as to what do they want to say? Because I don't think they can really contradict their view, whatever response they have already given.
That's a fair point.
Excellent point. I think you're absolutely correct about that. The first is till today, because nothing happened. Many times managements didn't even bother to respond in the director's report to qualification, or if they did, it was a cursory kind of response that it speaks for itself or some such thing. But the fact of the matter also is, take a case where is an entity controlled or not controlled, and therefore should it be consolidated or not. It's an abstruse accounting argument discussion. It's not something which either the auditor in his report can elaborate upon, nor for the board. Their report is intended for the lay shareholder to set out a complex argument as to why this particular entity is not controlled, and so we didn't consolidate it, or vice versa. After all, as you know, in Enron, that was one of the fundamental issues of whether there was an entity controlled or not controlled. So I don't think that the mechanism of the response in the director's report is a sufficient mechanism for the company to be able to make its case, and I think the FRRB would have to therefore operate as a tribunal to listen to both sides and then reach a conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have to be the case, because if it's not done at the FRRB level, the FRRB's opinion on whether there should be a restatement or not will be pointless if SEBI has to then rehear the case, bring in, according to principles of natural justice, allow the company to make a presentation, then arrive at a decision of its own. I mean, then it becomes even longer drawn. You know,
in appeal to the tribunal, to the courts, you could have several years.
But then Menka, it would mean that FRRBs will have to be given the statutory powers by the government. Otherwise, the companies will keep on saying that we are not answerable to you. That's the fundamental point, if you really ask me. If we don't have that power, then I think it's only the SEBI which will have to do that hearing. Then FRRB will not be able to do that.
Okay, SEBI has to do the hearing, the FRRB's opinion then becomes almost redundant because you're hearing afresh.
I think the SEBI could become the routing agency on this. Even if the questions are raised by the FRRB to the company, maybe that's the opportunity, the sort of questions go from SEBI, you know, whether it is through QUAC or any other part of SEBI.
That becomes even more bureaucratic, because the questions go via SEBI, the answers come to SEBI, then FRRB looks at them, then does follow-up questioning, then it comes back. I mean, this could take several years for any decision to be made on a restatement or not. Then the whole purpose of this exercise is lost. Time is of essence in this.
No, so I'm not disputing that, Menka. I'm saying that, you know, rather than waiting for FRRB to be given authority, which, you know, may require something else. So I think we are all saying the same thing, that effectively there has to be a mechanism, whether by giving direct authority to FRRB or creating a routing mechanism through SEBI to give the company the opportunity to respond to the qualification in a manner which is more detailed than what is already there in the auditor's report, in the director's report, right? And that then becomes the basis for the FRRB to take a final decision. So I think the way this is going to be operationalized is going to be important, which is the same thing that we talked about.
And let's hope that, you know, listening to this and otherwise as well, the regulators will find the mechanics to fix this. Because I want to move on to the next question, and that is what happens to companies with several serious qualifications. I'm going to use a company simply as an illustration, Kingfisher. In the recent past, amongst the most talked about 9 material qualifications, one even raising doubts regarding the going concern status of the company. Now, in such a case, hypothetically speaking, if those qualifications are found to be justified by the FRRB and SEBI and a restatement is ordered, you know, the very viability of a company or its existence may come into question. Then how will this work?
I'll give you another example, Menka, not Kingfisher, but, you know, I dealt with a case for a very large telecom company which had 4 pages of qualifications. They had 34 audit qualifications, a very large kind of telecom company. Very small number. And this company was also listed in the overseas exchanges. And as I mentioned during the conversation earlier, the overseas exchanges did not permit a qualified audit report to be filed. So this company used to, over the next 6 months, which was the time period it had to file with the overseas authorities, adjust these qualifications, and the numbers which came out were absolutely different. So you had
a different set of numbers being reported overseas and a different set of numbers being reported
and we're not talking about 10-15%. We're talking about a profit turning into a loss and those kind of situations. So I think that's exactly what is going to happen now, that if we are able to enforce this mechanism in a serious manner, either the investor will have the benefit of getting that information within the short period of time, or, as you mentioned, you know, over time, you know, management will realize that they can't get away without making these adjustments, and therefore these adjustments will start reflecting in the financial statements much earlier than what we have seen in the past.
And investors will get a true picture of the financials of that company in the earlier past. The other outcome potentially of this, and Mr. Chopra, please come in on this one, the other outcome potentially of this is that companies apply undue pressure on their auditors and insist that there be no qualifications, and I use the word insist in an almost jocular fashion, that there be no qualifications because they don't want to have to deal with the threat of a potential restatement. What is this going to mean for the company-auditor relationship here onwards?
No, I personally feel I am not caring for that kind of a relationship, to be very honest. But your point is well taken, that under the circumstances probably it would happen that the companies will say that if you qualify there could be a restatement. But I can only say that the qualifications are so severe. I don't think any auditor can compromise on that. If the kind of qualifications we are talking of, I think no auditor will be able to really take a chance. That's the way. Because as I look at the auditing profession has already got a lot of flack for certain reasons which they deserve and certain reasons they don't deserve at all. I think we have to be on the watch, and I'm sure, irrespective of anything, this is probably one of the most applaudable steps that any regulator has taken, and we must go ahead with that, and we must try to implement it.
You're absolutely right that companies which are running into rough weather may, well, I don't say all of them will, but some may search for more pliable auditors who are perhaps more susceptible to pressure well in advance of actually running into the rough seas. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, I think it certainly strengthens the hand of the auditor.
Correct.
And I think many auditors will take advantage of this further strengthening to say that we now really are serving a purpose, because till now we didn't seem to be serving a purpose. We qualified. It was a complete waste of time because nothing happened after that. Whereas now something is going to happen. So that would be a positive thing. And I think your first leading question was essentially what Jamil was saying, that in many jurisdictions they don't accept qualified audit opinion. But I don't think we have reached a state of maturity, both in the quality of our accounting as well as in the quality of many of our auditors, to be able to say that, because you could well find that very justified things are being qualified, or things where there is a reasonably good argument on the company's side, the auditor nevertheless is qualifying, and then to force the company to restate may not be an entirely fair thing. But
I think if at all those cases are there, this could be absolutely negligible to my mind, because no management allows you to qualify without a reason, and I'm very clear on that. And another thing that I would like to say, I'm raising an issue rather for Naushar and Jamil. So far we are concentrating only on the qualification under section 227(3). What happens if there are qualifications under 227(4)A also? If the auditor under CARO says that the funds have been diverted, if he says that the company has defaulted on the statutory dues, etc., we have not even looked at that particular action. What SEBI is going to do? SEBI is only saying that restate the accounts.
I have an answer to that.
Clearly that frauds.
I have an answer to that. I've been given to understand that depending on the severity of the situation and depending on what kind of qualification therefore it is, SEBI may even choose to accompany the restatement order with penalties of some sort or punishment as well against the management. Not just in the case of qualified audit reports, the market regulator will also scrutinize audit reports where accounting irregularities have been pointed out by the FRRB. Again, details on that process are still awaited, but it's a good start. And that's not all. There's more that SEBI did for investors this week. Coming up next.